to talk about like putting a model from open source to production. We talk about API security just to be sure the concerns of APIs are well understood. But now let's talk about the use case and application with Pablo Elgueta. Hello, Pablo. How are you?
Hey, Mehdi, I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing well. So actually, we invited you really for talking about making all of this as a use case, and you will talk about talking to your data, making data accessible through AI. And yes, the stage is yours for 20-minute plus 5-minute questions. Thank you.
Of course. Thank you for having me. So my name is Pablo Elgueta. I'm a machine learning specialist. And today I'm going to talk first about a brief introduction into what are large language models and how we can integrate them into our products. And then I'm going to show you a brief demo on how to make data accessible to stakeholders through AI. Okay. So first, we're going to cover what are LLMs. Then I'm going to show you briefly the impact they've had on app development, and then how we can integrate them into products and what does this integration imply. Finally, I'm going to show you a demo on how we can use LLMs to provide access to non-technical teams through SQL databases. And finally, we'll have a brief Q&A session. So what are LLMs? Basically, they are machine learning models which are trained in huge datasets. And by huge, I mean like the whole internet. Trillions, literally trillions of words or tokens. So what makes them different is the architecture that they're built in, which is called a transformer. This architecture scales in performance with the amount of data it's been trained on. So the more data, the better performance. And this, as you have seen in the past few months, has given us like orders of magnitude of better performance in terms of what the state of the art was a few years ago. Finally, LLMs, unlike previous machine learning models, are being generally provided by the companies that made them as an API to users, which, as we will see, provide a very big difference in how they're consumed and integrated. So, as I was saying, Google, Meta, OpenAI, which are biggest companies in the industry right now, have built these huge models and are now providing API access to them, which levels the field and provide everyone in the world with access to this technology. So before, if you wanted to implement machine learning technology, you had to first create your model in-house, which meant hiring data scientists, machine learning engineers, collecting data, building data pipelines. So this was obviously super expensive. It was difficult. It took a lot of time. And the other big impact that LLMs have had is also that, as you might have seen from, for example, ChatGPT, they're very versatile. So they can perform multiple tasks, like, for example, translation, summarization. They can generate content and even reason to a certain extent. So as I was saying, they're very versatile. And finally, we can see that all of the complexity that these models used to have, and that they still have, now with LLMs, it's abstracted. So the way we are accessing them is through an API layer, which abstracts all of the complexity, which makes integration into our products way easier. So here you can see what the traditional machine learning development lifecycle used to be. So you had to collect data, curate it, transform it. You had to train the model, make data exploration, validate it, evaluate it. Then you integrate it into your app, and finally you tested it. And it started all over again in case there was any data drift or you had to implement new features. So it was very complex and expensive. Nowadays, these companies, as I was saying, are providing LLMs through APIs, which makes it cheaper, easier, and provides wider access to it. So now that we've seen the benefits of LLMs in general, I'm gonna show you how we can integrate it into our applications and what are the differences from traditional machine learning models in this sense. Okay, so first we have a whole new stack of technology. So now we've seen frameworks like LangChain, Llama Index, which are used to orchestrate LLMs, vector databases, which are not new but are being used in a new way now. We're seeing new problems that didn't exist before, like prompt engineering, for example. Also see new paradigms like the creation of agents. And finally, we have new challenges, for example, token limits, hallucinations, context windows. Okay. So in terms of the new stack, despite simplifying the building of AI-powered applications, LLMs have given rise to a new technical stack. So we have the models themselves, OpenAI GPT 3.5 and 4, Anthropic's Claude, and various open source models. We also have embedding models, for example, which convert text into vectors, which then can be used in vector databases for retrieval. We have orchestration frameworks like LangChain and Llama Index, which are used basically to coordinate all of these pieces and integrate them into our traditional apps. We also have evaluation frameworks to allow us to test and measure the performance and accuracy of our models. And obviously external APIs that provide interaction with Web 2.0, so to speak. So as you can see, it's a whole new ecosystem. And this had a lot of implications for our teams, which need to retrain and learn new skills. Then in terms of the problems we're seeing, as I was saying, we have prompt engineering. So first, what are prompts? Prompts are basically the instructions we provide to the model. They have various components. First, for the instruction itself. So we tell the model what to do, how to use external information if we provide it, what to do with the query, how to construct the output, for example, if you wanted to provide put it in JSON format, for example. We can also provide external information in the prompt in the sense of providing context to the model. For example, providing additional sources of knowledge through a vector database, for example, or through API access. And finally, the query itself, which is the human user input. So then what is prompt engineering? So personally, I find that prompt engineering is the art of getting an LLM to provide the desired output. Why the art? Because LLMs, as you've seen, are non-deterministic, which means that providing the same input won't necessarily yield the same results every time. And on top of this, they are extremely complex. So it's still not widely understood how they operate to get the results they provide and how we can get them to provide useful results consistently. So for example, we have techniques like chain of thought, which basically consist in telling the model to think step by step. This yields the benefit of providing better results, as it's been studied on various papers, but also provide a way of debugging sort of the model. Then in terms of new paradigms, we've seen the creation of agents. But what are agents? Agents are LLMs that have been given access to tools. For example, a Python interpreter, Google search, SQL database, or Microsoft 365 apps. But why is it a paradigm shift? LLMs, as we mentioned before, are very versatile. They can do translation, summarization, basic reasoning, but they're still limited. For example, ChatGPT is awful at math. So like even with simple sums, it will get them wrong sometimes. And agents come to fix those limitations. So we can have multiple agents that are experts in different things. For example, an agent that's an expert in Python and can do math, for example, or execute Python scripts or functions then we can have an agent that's in charge of searching in Google for user requests, for example. So this provides a lot of versatility to our model creation and also a lot of complexity. And it's still super new, so it's still being developed. And yeah, it's a very exciting field. Finally, we see that there's new challenges in the field of LLMs. As with every new technology, they come with new challenges. In this case, for example, we have token limits. So LLMs are still being constrained by technical capacity, like cloud computing, like video cards. So they have limitations on the amount of tokens that they can process per minute. This introduces problems, for example, when you're sending parallel calls to the API, especially if you scale and have thousands or millions of users using your application at the same time. There's a way of mitigating it, but it's still something that needs to be considered when building applications with LLMs. Secondly, we have the term of context window. So the context window is basically the amount of data that an LLM can ingest per call, or kind of the attention span of the model. But models like GPT-4 have a limit of like 8,000 tokens, while others like Anthropic's Claude can reach 100,000. Like that's a whole book basically. So it's a lot, but still in practice they are limited, and you need to take that into consideration when designing your prompts. So for example, in the example I'm going to show you now, which is basically converting text into a SQL query, normally I would like to set all the tables that I have in my database in the prompt, so the model will know where to look. But if I have thousands of tables, that simply goes beyond what the context window allows. So I won't be able to do it. So I'll have to, for example, I don't know, find an alternative like vectorizing them or something along those lines. And finally, we have hallucinations. So what are hallucinations? Basically, they are, like the name implies, cases where the model will create information that it's simply not true. So you will ask it, I don't know, what's 2 plus 2 plus 2, and it'll invent a whole answer. Or you can ask it for the birthday of a president, and it'll come with a date out of nowhere. So it's a complex problem that it's not entirely understood why it happens, and that also means that the ways to mitigate it are limited at the time. As this field evolves, obviously there will be solutions to this. So now I'm going to show you a quick demo on how we can use LLMs to democratize access to data by reducing technical barriers through the use of natural language in LLMs. So normally in an organization, stakeholders need access to data to make decisions. Currently, most data in companies store in databases, which are usually SQL-based. And to retrieve information from this database, you need to make a query in SQL format. So that means you need to know SQL. And usually you need a team of analysts, which are in charge of going through a database, creating the queries, selecting the data, and formatting it in an appropriate way for consumption, which will usually be an email or a report. So this means that stakeholders don't have immediate access to data. They have to wait for the analysts to provide it to them. So, and they also need to expend resources in hiring people to do it. So by allowing LLMs to basically act as an interpreter between natural language and SQL queries, we can improve decision-making speed, productivity, and even human resources usage. Okay, so I'm going to show you. Here you can see the bot in Affiliate AI. So we're going to ask it a question. For example, give me the ROI per campaign for 2023. So we run the query here. The model is basically translating my query into SQL and go into a database. So we see that the ROI per campaign is 6.34%. Now I'm going to ask it, okay, how much revenue did we generate yesterday? There we go. We generated $78,000. Now we'll ask it top 5 affiliates by commission. It'll show the IDs to protect the privacy. So there we have the information almost immediately, instead of having to ask an analyst. And we can ask in terms of performance, for example, and it'll provide an answer. So we can see that it's very powerful. Obviously, this is still in its infancy. We're still beta testing, for example, the feature of having them all draft an email, for example, that's ready for to send to your manager with all relevant metrics, and even incorporate the ability to create charts and graphics based on queries, for example, as an image. So it's all very new, but you can see the possibilities for augmenting efficiency and basically empowering humans and stakeholders to do more with less. So now we have a Q&A session. If there's any questions.
Yeah, Pablo, thank you very much. We have a few questions. Like, do you consider it difficult for a beginner to start learning about LLMs?
I would say no. I would say that it's easier than ever to actually get into the field of machine learning. Now, as I think Omar was saying, more than machine learning experts, what we need is software developers that can integrate these tools into existing products. So tools like frameworks like LangChain, for example, allow to integrate them very easily into your application, abstracting all of the complexity. So yeah.
We have another question about LangChain. So LangChain is moving really fast, sometimes breaking stuff, or sometimes like really updating stuff a lot. So
Yeah.
is it something you would still recommend to use, even like things are moving a lot?
Well, frankly, there's not much alternative. Like we have LangChain and Llama Index, and both are moving pretty fast. Obviously, yeah, you have to take to create safeguards so it doesn't break your app. In our case, for example, we freeze the LangChain version at a certain number to avoid breaking any stuff. But I would say the benefits of the constant improvement and adding new features and integrations vastly outweigh the issues that it might cause.
Yeah, we have another question about like the regulation and AI Act. So is it something you consider right now, or for example, there is a European company called Mistral who just raised 100 million to build a European ChatGPT competitor. So is it something that today, as a builder, you consider, or you just build and we will see later?
Well, regulation is not final yet, so I would say it's and obviously depends on where you are, but I would say just build and worry about that later. If you don't have a product, well, obviously it's not going to be an issue. And I would say if you have legal issues, that means you're making money, and well, the problem, right?
Yeah, good problems, at least. Good
Yeah.
problems. Yeah. Also, are there any class or trainings that you recommend to follow to actually improve your skills on LLMs?
Yes. So OpenAI and I think it's builditlearning.com, but they have a pretty good course on LLMs, and integrating with LangChain and other frameworks. Also, OpenAI's GitHub has a lot of examples and on how to start using, for example, vector databases for data retrieval, integrating LangChain. So yeah, like I would say, just jump in, start building, and you'll learn way more doing that.
Yeah, I think we don't have any more questions. Thank you very much, Pablo, for this presentation and the demo. Right, and also thank you for explanations.
Of course.